What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another video. As Hell in a Cell and the WWE draft approaches, what surprises can fans expect on last night's Raw? And to be honest, there was a massive surprise, which you probably already know by now. But WWE may have also revealed something else, a massive storyline and who's behind it. Join us now as Wrestlelamia analyzes the 5th October edition of the Red Brand and looks at the wildest wrestling news stories and rumors you need to know, including Paige wanting to change the WWE by unionizing it, a retired superstar once Drew McIntyre, 2 NXT stars are moving up the main roster, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now, as always, we won't waste your time recapping the matches, but we will take a look at the good, the bad, and the downright ugly from last week's show. As always, we start off with the good as number 1, Mustafa's moment. Last night's Raw was Mustafa's moment, and hopefully the start of something special. The big reveal that Mustafa Ali is the leader of Retribution was a surprise, but one that makes sense in hindsight. Ali's career has been on the skids ever since the injury that sidelined him from the 2019 Elimination Chamber show that launched Kofi Mania instead, and saw Ali and his fans wondering if he would have ever fared as well as Kofi. The WWE could have picked a bigger name wrestler as Retribution's leader, but if anyone has a right to be disgruntled about a lack of opportunity, it's Mustafa Ali, who has loudly criticized the WWE for the last year, rightly pointing out his absence from anything resembling a push. Now, the tricky part is going to be whether or not the WWE gives Ali the push to sustain the storyline and establish him as more than the guy from Main Event who's leading a bunch of masked NXT stars. Number 2, selling the big reveal. Sometimes what seems like a minor detail can make a huge difference in an angle. Case in point, the Hurt Business's facial gestures when Ali revealed himself as Retribution's leader, helping the angle further. MVP Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley's look of surprise sold a turn well, as did their subsequent look that they were ready to fight, surprise or not. The Hurt Business did their part to get Ali over, giving him his moment in the spotlight and helping to advance the storyline. Number 3, upping their badass game. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler put on a clinic in Carnage tonight, brutalizing Natalya and Lana before showcasing why they're going to be a tough team to upend. While Jax and Baszler didn't dominate the Riot Squad during their defense of the Women's Tag Team Championship, they still look tough, and it's refreshing to see both Jax and Baszler playing the monster heels they've been shown to be before. They're an odd pairing, but if the WWE keeps booking them this way, they could add some much needed life to the tag team titles. Number 4, Murphy's face turn. The WWE has been teasing Murphy's face turn for some time, and the storyline with Aliyah Mysterio has turned into a good vehicle to pull it off, giving both her and Murphy a chance to show what they can do in the spotlight. And if the rumors are true, she'll eventually turn heel, perhaps even joining Seth Rollins. The WWE and Seth Rollins both deserve credit for using Murphy's discipleship with the Monday Night Messiah to build him up. Where things go on from now for Murphy's career is largely up to the WWE, as Murphy has shown he has the in-ring skills to be given a chance on his own. However, the WWE can't run a Murphy vs Seth Rollins feud unless Murphy gets a clean win that's seen as more than a fluke, and he gets a subsequent push to build off it. Number 5, Battle of the Behemoths. Raw's slobber knocker between Keith Lee and Braun Strowman shows what you can do when you have two big men with pretty much nothing to do, pit them in an all-out brawl that provides lots of power moves and some crazy spots to showcase their talents. While Keith Lee is more than a brawler, he's the perfect fit for a big man feud against Braun Strowman, and if the WWE is wise, which fans know they pretty aren't, they'll put both behemoths on the same roster so they can feud over the next few months. Both Lee and Strowman need to be doing something besides standing in place, and a long-term feud could help them keep in the spotlight until the WWE figures out what's next for them. But that was the good. What about the bad? Is number 1, third time's a charm. Why is Randy Orton getting another title match against Drew McIntyre? Is it because the Legend Killer has scored a number of big wins, particularly against the WWE Champion? No, it wasn't until after McIntyre agreed to their Hell in a Cell match that Orton finally scored a win on the champ. In fact, this was the first time that McIntyre has been pinned since last year. Now, McIntyre vs Orton is just one example of how the WWE doesn't know how to book feuds or rivalries, having one wrestler win match after match, creating zero incentive for fans to want to see a rematch. Sure, the argument can be made that Orton's only getting yet another title shot because he's angered McIntyre to the point of foolishness, but that doesn't make sense with the way Drew has been portrayed, nor does it explain why McIntyre doesn't just take Orton out backstage as he's done before. Number 2. The Golden Goddess going nowhere. Mandy Rose's move to Raw has quickly become one of the WWE's worst drafts in history, with the Golden Goddess going from arguably the biggest women's program on Smackdown, first her romance with Otis and then her feud with Sonya Deville, to being an afterthought on Raw. And we don't have anything against Dana Brooke, in fact we admire how she's worked hard to improve herself in the ring, but a new tag team with Rose shows zero creative input and is a bad omen for Rose's future. Short of Otis showing up on Raw, fans might as well write off both star-crossed lovers as their pushes have gone from 60 to 0 in 5 seconds. And number 3, the wrong ending. Now, although wrestling has dispensed with its old formula of starting shows off slow and building to the main event, it's still a cardinal rule that the night's last segment is the biggest moment of the night, whether it's a main event match or a big angle. Last night, the WWE dropped the proverbial ball with its big reveal that Mustafa Ali is Retribution's leader, airing the segment before the 6-man tag match between Street Profits and Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. Yeah, okay, it was crucial for Orton to get a pinfall win on McIntyre to establish him as capable of beating the champion, but it was even more important to stress how important Retribution is. Fans watching the show couldn't help but feel Retribution, as well as the Hurt Business, are second-rate when placement on Raw's final segment could have changed things. As Vince McMahon loves to say, reality is perception. Now, there was nothing downright ugly about Raw, and in fact, the WWE put on a good show that forwarded angles and provided one big shocker: Mustafa Ali masterminding Retribution. If they can build off the big reveal, the Retribution angle could live up to its potential. What did you guys think of Raw? What did you guys think of Mustafa Ali being the leader? Let us know in the comments down below. Now let's move on to the news. Our first story looks at Paige possibly changing the WWE by unionizing it. The WWE's new policy of taking over its superstars' Twitch and Cameo accounts may not be a walk in the park it thought it'd be. Recently, Paige hinted that she is thinking about unionizing, something which could prove to be a major headache for the WWE if her fellow superstars join her. Paige tweeted, "Learned a lot about unionism today." Then Zelina Vega joined in with the reply, "The road to forming a union could be difficult, but the benefits of being classified as employees rather than independent contractors could open the door for a much better long-term standard of living for wrestlers. Do you think wrestlers should unionize? Let us know in the comments down below." Next up, a retired superstar will come out of retirement to face Drew McIntyre. It looks like a retired wrestler has his sights on WWE champion Drew McIntyre. Although Wade Barrett returned to WWE recently as commentator for NXT, the former Nexus leader told Digital Spy he might come back for one thing: Drew McIntyre's WWE Championship. He mentioned, "In truth, if I was to come back as a full-time in-ring guy, I would really be chasing the sunset of my career. I don't think that there's that many more years left in me. So the question is, what would I want to achieve? The only thing I'd achieve in WWE that I always wanted to achieve was become the WWE Champion, and that title is now held by an old friend of mine, Drew McIntyre. So taking him on for that title is something that certainly might tempt me back for a match or two." Is this a match that you'd have any interest in seeing? It'd definitely be one for us. We'd love to see Wade Barrett back in the ring as a full-time heel. Next up, 2 NXT stars being called up. Now, while the WWE is denying that the stars of NXT could be drafted this year, Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrasso recently hinted that 2 major players from the Black and Gold brand could be called up to the main roster. According to Barrasso, don't be surprised if real-life husband and wife Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae are brought up to Raw or SmackDown. Now, the draft begins on this week's SmackDown and continues on next week's Raw, so we'll just have to see and wait. Next up, WWE reveals who the hacker is. Now that Mustafa Ali has revealed himself as Retribution's leader, it seems that he's also the Smackdown hacker. This is coming from a tweet from WWE on Fox, which has fans talking, saying, "Ali with the Retribution hack." Tying Ali in as the hacker could be a good way to show his long-term role masterminding his vendetta against the WWE. And finally, Batista wrestled with asthma inhalers at ringside. Asthma seems like it would prevent someone from being a professional wrestler, but that didn't stop Dave Batista. Recently, the retired WWE superstar and Hall of Famer elect talked about how he managed his asthma during his days in the squared circle. He mentioned, "I hid inhalers under the ring with people working around the ring. I'm not kidding, the cold venues were my nightmare." Batista revealed he has asthma during one of his rants on WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump. Is that something you knew though? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for exclusive lists, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.